The gory days are here to stay, the 80s horror show. Take a stroll down memory lane, it's time to start the show. The gory days, the gory days, the gory days, the gory days.
Welcome to the Gory Days, the show where we take a stroll down memory lane to remember our favorite horror films from the 1980s and early 1990s. I'm your host once again for another week, Kyle Leone here, to talk to you about a fantastic movie from 1996, Wes Craven's seminal film, Scream, that deconstructed the horror genre for which I am a huge fan. This podcast is a love letter to horror movies from the 80s and 90s, and this movie is, I can't tell if it's a condemnation letter or another love letter. It feels a lot like Cabin in the Woods, but we'll get into all of that in a sec. My guests today are a comedy duo. Most recently, we'll get into where they're from and all of that, but most recently they've created an exciting new web series called The Lost Girls, which follows a group of young women who are going through growing pains when it comes to being an adult. And their new horror feature film, Getaway, is receiving a huge amount of press and buzz online. No more than right here on this podcast. Please welcome to the Gory Days comedy duo, Georgie Storm Waite and Stef Beaton. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Oh my God, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, this is the first time meeting, but we met through friend of the podcast, Paris Herbert Taylor,
Yes.
who's another Australian, and you are both also from Australia?
Correct. We both are. Yeah.
Yes, I'm from Brisbane.
And I'm from Melbourne.
Okay, but you didn't meet in Australia, did you? You move down here together? I mean, I read your bio, but for our listeners, just you started in Australia, and when did you move out here? I guess, do you want to go first, George?
Yeah, sure. So I moved out here about 3 years ago, and I came over to LA because I got into this academy. It's like an acting academy, and that's how I met Stef.
That was the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Correct.
Yeah.
Pow, pow, pow.
I did my homework. Is that the fight song or a tagline for it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like an air horn. Bam, bam, bam.
Pow, pow, pow. Yeah.
How did you end up there?
I also got into it. I was living in London at the time,
Oh.
and then I got into the school and made the move over. I was the year above Georgie, so I guess a bit better.
Okay.
Whatever you reckon.
Okay,
mate.
well, it's true.
How long were you in London before this?
I was in London for like 2.5 years.
Okay.
And then, I moved over here. I worked at a bakery doing cake decorating. 'Cause why not,
That's very cool.
Test your limits.
And it's actually funny because I lived in London as well, so I feel like we should have crossed paths at some point.
No kidding.
Should've.
It's one of those things when you move country, you
Then
tend to
here
bump
you are.
into so many Australians.
Literally.
Well, if you didn't go to any bakeries, I guess, what were you doing while she was baking?
Where were you?
Yeah, well, look, I used to work in production, so I actually was part of the production team on a reality series
Ooh,
in London.
okay.
Yeah, so
What was it called?
it's called Made in Chelsea.
I don't know why I asked. I just wanted to be polite.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So that was your first job in the industry?
Yeah, it was, and that was kind of like where I got the taste of kind of being close to what I really wanted to do, which is acting,
okay.
but still being on set and being involved in production. And yeah, it was such a great introduction into the industry.
So your first intro into the industry was London. How did you get that job?
It was bizarre. So I used to work in marketing, and it just didn't feel quite right. And so I took the leap and decided to get into TV. And there was an entry-level job, basically, kind of like a PA, but they call it a runner over there.
Okay.
And I applied for the application, and I knew that there'd be like hundreds of people trying to get this job because it's a really huge show over there.
Sure.
And basically, I met someone at a party that following weekend who used to be a producer on the show.
That's how it happens.
Yes, it is. And so she put me in touch with the guy who was like head of HR there. And then, I got in and worked my way up. So
That's amazing.
Yeah, the
And
rest is history.
So is your family still in Australia, or were they in London too?
Well, so I've got an older sister and a younger brother, and they both live in London.
Oh, okay.
So, but mum and dad are still in Australia, so it's,
Sure.
everyone's everywhere. But yeah, it was great having that family base over there when I moved over.
And then finally, when did you, not like year when, but when,
Yeah.
at one point at your production job, did you decide, well, I need to get to LA. I need to move to America.
Well, this is the crazy thing, is the show that I was working on, we brought the cast over to LA to film a mini-series for 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah. And after 2 weeks of being in LA, I just fell in love with the city. But I hadn't really thought about the opportunity to move over here and let alone do acting at this point. But I went back to London with the show, and then they actually sent me to Australia to do some casting.
Oh.
And so I had decided to kind of move back to Australia anyway at that point, and wanted to get back into acting, just, maybe a theatre company on the side. And then I was just searching for theatre groups back in Melbourne, Australia, and
Is there a big theater scene there?
yeah, there is, definitely. And especially for classes and, on stage. I wouldn't say, there's also film as well, but the industry isn't huge there.
Okay, it's more theater.
Exactly. And this ad for this academy popped up, and it was in LA. It was a 2-year course. It had, a lot of great alumni who'd been through, and I thought, look, this is actually what I've always wanted to do. And I took the leap, and it all paid off. So
That's
I got in.
amazing.
Yeah.
Are your family in industry too?
No, but there's always like my ancestry.
Yeah, go
It's-
back. Say your one celeb.
Okay, all right. So, my great grandfather, his name was Joseph Jefferson.
Okay.
And he was actually one of the most famous American comedians of the 19th century.
Really?
Yeah. And
I'm embarrassed. I haven't heard of him.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I have not either.
Okay, good.
And basically, it's always, and then other family members were kind of like vaudevillians, so performers, and they even got a medal from like the King of Siam.
For being funny?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I know,
didn't know
right?
they give medals for that.
They should.
Yeah.
Like we need to bring that back in.
Get yourself a silly heart.
Yeah.
So-
First I'm hearing of it.
So your great-great-great-great-grandfather was a comedy icon in
Yes.
the 19th century.
In America, yeah.
Won medals for his bravery.
Yes.
And this trickled down to you. And you finding yourself in the comedy genre by choice? Or is this like...
Well, yeah, I mean, I love both comedy and drama. But yeah, I don't know, I've just been drawn to it recently. I think more so as well, like with Stef, we found a connection over writing, and she's very involved in comedy, and so just having that collaboration with comedy is just so much fun. And it just, I don't know, with comedy it creates this like world.
Yeah.
It really does. Like we've been writing scripts and producing them and, performing comedy, and it's just, I don't know, it's just, if it gives you that much joy, it's kind of like, why not keep doing it?
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Steph, you've been so patient sitting here while Georgie just chatters on.
Sorry,
kidding.
not sorry.
Just chill.
But you were baking in London. At what time did
was.
you decide to make a transition?
I mean, God.
Do you still bake?
I occasionally,
Okay.
I don't know, I definitely
Not
wasn't.
on a professional level.
Not on a professional level by any means. No, I don't know. I loved working at the bakery. There was so many. I always loved comedy. So like
Okay.
I was always very observational, just like seeing these characters come in and out, like a constant source of inspiration. So I would always be taking notes in my phone, and I was like, I don't know when I'm going to use this one day, but like this is all going to come to fruition eventually.
Did you do anything in high school? Like, I saw you had an improv background. Did you do anything like that?
Yeah, we did like theater sports. So
Sure.
like we like compete like improv games, which was very fun. But like just a low-key insight, in Brisbane, the high school like competition is rigged. Like
What?
It's the tea. There it is, hot and piping.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, all the private schools like
Shots fired.
Yeah, I'll say it. I hope they hear this.
They might. I
Yeah.
was surprised when I had Paris on. My listening like shifted from mostly American to now mostly Australian.
Well, there you go. That's
cool.
the tea.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go
No.
ahead.
But yeah, that's where I kind of like started getting into improv in particular. And then once I moved to the UK, I did like a little bit of stand-up while I did like baking and such, but it was very low-key.
Okay.
I sp-
open mics?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was very like literally underneath pubs, like
That
just
still takes bravery. Good for you.
yeah, but very scary, and like even more characters there, to be quite honest. But Anyway, I did that for like 2 years, and then I was like, I'm actually going to study this. I'm going to do it. That's what I want to study. And then I auditioned for a bunch of schools there. I got into a couple, but then...
Wow, nice.
Yeah, but my dream school was like my worst audition of my life. Like, complete blank. Like, I've never blanked in my life before, but I stood up there in a room with 6 other people who were also trying to get into the school, plus the panel, and I just blanked. And I was like, do you mind if I just go and look at my paper? And they're like, no.
Oh my god.
And I was like, okay, so I'm just going to stand up here for a minute and then I'll sit down.
That's a sketch.
Yeah, tell me about it. I lived through it, and then I walked out of there and I was like, well, I've got nothing to lose now. And then I happened to get an email pop up about this school in the US.
The same day?
Literally the same day, and I'd never thought about moving to the US. Like, literally growing up, my mum was like, Steph, we're never going to the US. Just because, you know,
no
like...
offense.
No. No, but like, I don't know. I'm sure... Excuse me. I'm sure, like, y'all know there's, like, certain things in the US that, like, we don't have, like, guns or whatever. But that was something my mum very heavily was like, no, we're never going to the US. Like,
that's fascinating.
You know, which is, it's great. It's interesting. But anyway, I was like, whatever, okay, I'll audition. And then I had the best audition of my life, like, a week later and got in. And that took me over here. And then come to find out, not all Americans are like gun-toting. Like, hi there.
Enough of them are, unfortunately. But
but yeah, no, it was a huge life change and something I'd never expected to do.
So did you have a place to live when you came out here?
I was kind of, through the school, they helped me find a place to live.
Oh, nice.
But it was very overpriced, I will say.
Was it in the city, in downtown?
No, it was literally like, okay, my first address was on Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh, no.
So, like, Hell 101.
I guess that could be fun for your first time, but it would get old quick.
Absolutely. Like, day one, I popped out of my apartment. My new roommate hadn't moved in yet, and I was like, I'm going to walk down Hollywood Boulevard and just, like, stare at the stars and be like, wow, I can't think of everyone who's come before me. And then, like, cut to find out, like, it's just people in costumes. Like, it's just
and don't forget the CDs they're trying to
promote.
promote.
Yes. Never forget. It's just... I can't, and
I fell for that first time I came to Hollywood.
Absolutely. And every time since my friends have come to visit, that's the first thing they want to do. And I'm like, we're not going. Like,
no.
I will pay for your lift. You can go.
Yeah.
I'm not going.
Yeah, like, you can drive through it at 1 mile an hour.
Exactly. Yeah, but then that's what brought me over here. And then, the school, I met... Day one, I met my other comedy writing partner, Devon Sholin.
Oh, that's right.
We started writing sketches together. Like, we did our first sketch together within the first month of knowing each other, like, live.
Oh, wow.
And it was
That's a big production turnaround.
Yeah, and it was just, I don't know, it was when you meet your people to write with, it's easy. You know? It's just like...
It's like dating.
Yeah,
you
truly.
Click and it's,
exactly. And it's been, it's been the same with George. Like, as soon as we started hanging out and just bidding off each other, it was like as easy as breathing.
You beat me to the segue.
No.
So you're at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Are you taking a class together, or do you get cast in something?
No.
Steph was the year above me, and she was doing like the additional third year program.
Oh, okay.
And I happened to be asked to be a stage manager for her play that she was in, and so that was really when
we first started. And it was literally like this play, one of the most phenomenal play I think I've ever had the opportunity to do.
Was it a comedy?
Yeah, it was a dark comedy called Dolores by Edward Allan Baker, and like it's 2 women who play sisters. It's a very dark comedy, absolutely incredible. We were directed by Sandy Martin, who just did 3 Billboards out of Ebbing, Missouri.
Oh, that name sounded familiar.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
like Napoleon Dynamite. She's incredible, the best director I've ever worked with. But
is it just the 2 women?
Just the 2 women.
For the whole play? Wow.
For the whole play, yeah. It's just a one act, and George was our stage manager. And then all 3 of us, like me, the girl who played across from me, Claire Fazzolari, and George,
shout out.
Yeah, right, are all Australian. So it was just like, we were all Australian, and me and Claire had to play 2 women from Rhode Island. So it was just a really great experience.
That's amazing. So I imagine that there's, like, Paris has told me there's this web of Australians in LA that all have to, like, keep in touch. And are you connected to that in any way, or are you trying to keep yourselves insulated?
Well, I am quite connected to that. I actually volunteer with this company called Australians in Film. And it's a community in LA that supports all the Aussies who are kind of, trying to make it. And they do lots of community events. I was at one last Monday, and it was kind of, helping actors to learn about social media and what we should be doing to kind of help our profile.
Oh, that's great.
And then we had a showing of like Men in Black the other night because
Cool.
Chris Hemsworth's in
Ah.
it. So.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so
I always
Aussies
forget.
supporting Aussies,
Yeah.
you know. And it's one of those things that's you just kind of fall into hanging out with other Australians because they've had to go through similar processes with you, whether it's like, you know, getting your visa or even just like little things like finding a bank to join.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
It's just nice to be able to talk to somebody who has a shared experience.
Exactly,
Yeah.
totally.
Just like anything. So, when did you two decide, like, we're going to start writing something together? You were stage manager. You were acting in the show.
Yeah.
Did you go to coffee? Did you, how did it end up? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. So, so we had both been asked to...
I literally don't know what you're about to say.
Steph is looking at Georgie
Yes.
like, what is she
Yeah.
saying? And Georgie's looking to co-sign.
Go for it.
Yeah, remember that night we got drunk? No,
What?
it wasn't that. No, it wasn't that. We both got asked to be part of this short film called Head Case.
Ah.
Yes.
Yes.
True.
Yes.
Yes.
Where we actually, funnily enough, played sisters.
Oh, is that
In
the
the
one that was
film.
nominated for the People's Choice Award for Best Featured Short at the Indie Flick Short Film Festival?
Yes, it was.
Oh.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm glad you knew that. Common fact.
Yeah.
No, it's really impressive. What's the log line for Head Case?
God. I mean, it's one woman, Pam, she's a therapist, having to help all of her kind of deranged clients and the people in her personal life. And we just happen to be two of the clients
Okay.
that she unfortunately has to deal with.
As sisters.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's great.
exactly.
Sisters who think they're identical twins.
Well, you
I
think
do.
we're identical.
Yeah.
And so that was your first time working together, like one-on-one, and was that in London?
No, that was here in LA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And a friend of ours who also went to the academy where we studied, he was actually the one who, I guess, suggested us to the director.
Okay.
And then brought us on, and ever since then we've kind of done a lot of work with him, our friend who brought us onto the project, the DP who was working on that as well. And
Yeah, since then, once we just saw how easy it was for us to work together and how easy it was to work with this particular team, it was just like, why? I mean, every young actor knows how hard it is to go and how draining it is to go through, like, backstage audition, you know, all these different auditions back to back, and then you almost get to a point where you're like, not that I'm worth more than this, but I want something more stimulating, and damn it, I'm going to write it myself. And that's kind of where we got to. And it was like, I don't know, once we sat down and were like, what roles do we want for us? And like, particularly we've been working with a lot of our women friends who are just phenomenal performers. It was just like, what parts can we write for these women that are not being told, and let's just damn well do it.
Yeah.
You know?
And so how are you doing that now? What do you have coming down the pike? I, of course, know, but
God, I mean,
you've got this new horror film.
Yeah,
Yes.
Getaway is my baby.
Yeah.
I love it so much. I wrote it with my writing partner, Devon Sholin, and of course we wrote a part for Georgie because she's the best. But it's basically just a cabin in the woods type feature. We wanted to have it that slasher vibe that would get people, especially horror fanatics, that nostalgic feel.
Yeah.
But also bringing in the elements of the paranormal, specifically in reference to the Momo challenge that went around.
Oh.
We're kind of taking that and spinning it and making our own to make kind of like a Mazubaru, which means like mother bird. And yeah, take a lot of that concept but make it our own. And
Interesting.
Yeah, a new slasher / paranormal.
So yeah, I guess pivoting now to horror, then you're knee deep in comedy. How do you find yourselves in a horror genre now?
Well, I have always loved horror.
Awesome.
And,
Me too.
Oh God, I'm just obsessed with it. I remember the days, like I had a best friend back home called Jay Barker. Shout out Jay Barker. But he used to work at a Civic Video, which is basically like a Blockbuster, and I have so many memories of going for like slumbies over at his house and just being like, okay, let's go to the video store, let's pick out all these, and he would always have ones reserved for me, being like, you have to watch this, like
Of horror movies.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, I always loved horror, but my natural inclination was comedy. So I don't know, I've met a lot of comedic people who are the same way, and even especially now, not to compare by any means, but like Jordan Peele, he's producing these horrors now, and they're incredible. And I think it just comes down to timing.
Yeah.
You know, like you need timing for comedy, you need timing for horror.
Absolutely.
So I think that's why they kind of go hand in hand.
And in my opinion, that movie is so effective in its comedy. I mean, it's so effective in its horror because of its comedy.
Absolutely.
Is that those moments of levity with the TSA agent, give way for that deep horror that comes later. So that's something that I hadn't thought about. That like for Scream, it is like what am I thinking? Like a backlash effect or whatever, that like when you have something comedic, then it makes way for more humor.
Exactly.
What's this movie about? Can you talk about it? I mean, it's making the festival circuit, I guess.
Well, we're just in we're about to start filming it. Like we filmed the trailer, and we're really excited about that, and it's just had a bunch of investor meetings, which is really, really exciting, and I believe we're set to start filming in September.
Fantastic.
But yeah, it's just kind of getting the final details together. I'm so excited to start doing it. You know, it's my first feature I've ever written or co-written with Devon Cholin. But it's just become such like a culmination of everything that I love about horror and comedy, because these characters, their dialogue is so witty, and I'm so proud of it. But like when the horror hits, it just hits you in the face. And just going from experience of every horror film that I grew up loving, I really hope it's done it justice, because that's what like inspired me to do this, and that is what has almost like set the tone of what I want to aspire to be at. And this film feels like a way to be able to pay homage. Is that how you say that word? Homage? Yeah. To that, because, you know, they meant a lot to me, and they really like, there would be so many times where you'd be having like a, can I cuss on this?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
I'd be having like a shitty day.
Why did you look at me?
I don't know, George. I did, okay. But yeah, no, you'd be having like a shit day, and I'd come home and like put on a horror, and suddenly you care about these characters, and you're like, you want them to survive, and I don't know, like, not to get too deep, but it's like, if they can survive, I'll bloody survive. Like, I don't know, even if it's just someone said something shitty to you at work, like, I'll get through this.
That's what I love about horror, is the themes that it explores are much deeper. I mean, a comedy can explore, like, you know, the comedic elements of, like, tag. How long can a game of tag go?
Yeah, exactly.
Or how much will three friends sacrifice to find their friend who was drunk on the roof of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But horror is more like how much, like, flesh is a father willing to lose to save his family, or like how much is a child willing to sacrifice to save their mom or something. It's like those kinds of themes are what like horror can dig into, and your passion's infectious. Who do you play in this film without spoiling anything?
So I kind of play Brittany, and she's kind of the mum of the group, trying to like get everyone together and make sure everyone's having a great time, because there's such a mix of personalities. So she's kind of trying to balance all that out and be like the kind of caretaker of the group. I'm not going to give away too much about her death, but
no spoilers.
How dare you? How dare? What if I just started like beating you up here right now?
No, we won't blow up the spot. We won't give too much away. But when it comes out, I definitely want to boost that signal. That's really exciting.
Totally.
And then individually, so Steph, you star in a series called Dredgewood?
Yes. Oh my goodness. The same guy who like originally got us into Headcase also happened to be working on this series called Dredgewood. And I literally just saw the application on Backstage, and it said like a kind of show that's a mix between Riverdale and like Stranger Things, that kind of vibe, looking for jocks and cheerleaders. And me in my mind was like, I'm not either of those things, but I'm going to be in this show. So I sent out this little like long cover letter being like, hey, I'm not a jock. I'm not a cheerleader. I love the vibe of Riverdale, and I am a hoe for Stranger Things. So in all realness, if you need a barb, I will be your barb. I will go above and beyond. Like, if you want a barb that's iconic, I will be that iconic bitch. And I sent it off. I was like, no fucks given. I'll send it off to the world.
Cold?
Wow. And he sent me a message, like, because he just had my number, and he texted me. He was like, hey, they loved your cover letter so much, they're writing a part for you. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's
That's
so fun.
amazing.
Yeah, so
The risk
yeah.
paid off.
Yeah, really. And so now I play Marge Williams on Dredgewood. That's also, we've just started doing all the trailer and concept stuff, and they were just pitched to Amazon maybe a month ago, I think.
Exciting.
And they were really excited about it, and we've got some really cool people looking to invest in it, which is really, really exciting. And yeah, I just play a lovable dork in the first season, but then she kind of develops into something a little bit more mystical.
Is this
let's say.
more limited 6 episodes, or is this full 10?
I believe it's 6 for the pilot, but I think it's around 10 for the next, hopefully 4 to 5 seasons.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's exciting.
Yeah,
That's
it's
really
really cool.
exciting.
Yeah.
And then you also host an improv night in Hollywood. Tell me about that.
I do. With my comedy writing partner, Devon Sholin, we host a live sketch and improv show called Fair Play at the
Okay.
Loft Ensemble in Sherman Oaks.
Very cool.
Well, actually, it just moved to North Hollywood.
Oh.
Whoa, literally last
Ooh.
week. But yeah, ever since we started doing sketch together, which is where we found our love, as much as we love improv, we just thought, we don't want to wait. Once again, we don't want to wait for opportunities to come up. We're just going to host a show, and we were part of this theater company, and we presented it to them that we wanted to do it, and they were like, yeah, we have a position for a late night show if you guys want to do it. And we've been doing it for 8 months now, so it's still pretty fresh, but I feel like we've moved out all the kinks that come up in hosting and producing a show, specifically comedy. But yeah, it's such a fun night. We're always looking for performers if you want to get in contact.
That's twice now you've mentioned not wanting to wait for the good opportunity to come knocking on your door, instead that you have to manifest it.
Definitely.
And I think that's so... I was reading an article in Variety about Elizabeth Banks' production company and how she was frustrated in the roles that she was getting in 40-Year-Old Virgin and Zack and Miri Make a Porno and all these things. So now she's made her production company with her husband, and she's directed and written this movie, and it seems like that's how you do it.
Yeah,
totally.
Is that once you get to a point where you're lucky enough that you have a group of collaborators that you trust, then you should just be making the thing that you want to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so, Georgie, moving back over to you, you were on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend?
Yeah, so this was...
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and I played... it's this crazy story, but I played her... double on the show.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what...
Like a stand-in, or?
Yeah, no, because basically in this particular episode and series, she kind of does a flash forward to her future, and she's in the room seeing her future happen.
Okay.
So it was kind of I had to play opposite her.
Yeah, so you were the back of her head?
Yes, exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that
Very
was
cool.
really fun, and it was great being on such a big production, and with so many talented actors, and a lot of the time I actually acted with the other supporting actors, because Rachel wasn't feeling too well in that particular time.
That's the best thing you want to hear.
Yes, I know. It was amazing. I was like, oh yes, I
no
can
offense
finally.
to her, but yeah, when she gets sick, it's your time to shine.
Exactly. So that was wonderful. I had a great time, and it was actually literally on the last episode of the entire show.
Oh, the series finale.
Yeah, the series finale. So
I guess that makes sense for why there would be a time forward.
Yes,
flash
exactly. And
kind of like they did on Parks and Rec in the last few
yes,
seasons.
I miss that show so
Yeah,
much.
me too. But look what it did for all those actors.
Exactly.
Aziz Ansari got to do his wonderful thing.
Yes.
Chris Pratt is in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's amazing.
Yeah, legend.
Amy Poehler just wrote and directed Wine Country. Yeah, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
That group of women too,
Oh,
my
that would be
God.
ideal.
The one,
If we could do
Prince
something like
bit,
that.
What's her name? Maya Rudolph.
Maya Rudolph
Rudolph.
is so
Oh
great.
my God,
I
that
love
Prince
her.
bit. Me and my roommate were like, I'm sorry, but I feel like we've had this literal conversation. Deceased. Those women. That's the thing. When you see these groups of women coming together, and they're literally just doing such natural dialogue, it's first of all, I know some of that is improv because that's where the best shit comes from.
Exactly.
But when you just have that lifelong chemistry, and I'm like, not to have a premonition, but I feel like me and George
I feel like that's
and the
It's
group of
coming.
gals, the gals we've got in our lives, and the incredible men, are just phenomenal. And I'm so lucky we have them in. I'm so happy.
Excited.
So then why Scream? What made you want to bring Scream to the Gory Days?
I think Scream is probably my absolute favorite horror movie.
Okay.
I love the campness. I love I love the mix of comedy and like the slasher. Like I love it. I love the style. I fell in love with these characters and I cared for them. And when they died, I was devastated.
You love Neve Campbell too much?
Yes,
to see her go?
I do.
Well, actually, she doesn't go.
Well, no. Spoiler.
Spoiler if you haven't seen it.
But no, like, oh my god, the deaths are iconic. They're ridiculous. Like, some of them are ridiculous. Like,
They
the
are.
one with the garage.
elevator one,
Yes,
or
are you kidding me?
garage, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I love it.
Yeah.
I even, just the group of teenagers. It seems so simple, so innocent. You have all your specific types, but then like...
And then you've got, the news reporter and
Gail
the
Levitt.
incompetent
I love her.
cop. Yeah, I love her too.
Courtney Cox.
Yeah,
and
she
like
kills it.
Killed it.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, her outfits throughout the whole...
Yes!
I love her yellow suit.
Oh, I'm just upset. Like,
And her
Iconic.
hair at the
Iconic.
end when she's all roughed up. She looks
everything.
so good.
Even the first scene, like Drew Barrymore, the
Yes.
iconic scene, like, it's just iconic. And that's why, like, when George was like, yeah, we need to talk about a horror film, I'm like, Scream.
Scream, like
Do you remember
it's-
when you first saw it? Did you see it in theaters, do you think? Or
No, I saw it, I must have been at my friend Jay's house.
Oh, one of
I
those.
feel like,
one of our
I was
slumbies.
having a sleepover. Oh, I have
That's
this.
interesting. You call it sleepover, but you call it slumby. It seems like one of you have made a little bit more of an adapt.
Wow,
Well,
Georgie.
let's hash that out.
Oh, let's.
What's the first meal of the day?
Brekkie?
Yeah, Brekkie.
Brekkie, not
Yeah.
breakfast.
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
Yeah, well, there you
Well,
are, Georgie, now being authentic.
Well, when we come back, we'll be talking all about the 1996 classic Scream by Wes Craven. When we come back, more The Gory Days, more Stef, more Georgie when we come back.
The Gory Days.
Welcome back to The Gory Days. Kyle Leone here, Stef Beaton, and Georgie Storm Waite. Got it. And today we're talking about Scream, 1996, Wes Craven's movie. So yeah, when I don't remember the first time I saw this movie, but I almost guarantee that I saw Scary Movie first, and it totally screwed up my memory of this movie. And like, I had to rewatching it this time, I had to undo a lot of like what I thought happened, and like obviously the things that I thought happened in this movie were from Scary Movie. But today we're not talking about Scary Movie, we're talking about Scream. The Scream from 1996 was actually originally developed under the title Scary Movie by aspiring screenwriter at the time, Kevin Williamson, who was inspired to write an 18-page script treatment about a young woman alone in a house who's taunted over the phone and then attacked by a masked killer inspired by the Gainesville Ripper, who I'd never heard of. In Gainesville, Florida, an American serial killer murdered 5 students over 4 days in late August 1990. So decade-wise, that would have put this right in like, okay, 1990, take him about 6 years. Well, maybe not to write it, but to sell it, certainly. And in fact, that's just what happened. In June 1995, he put Scary Movie, the script, out on sale for bid. And it sounds like I don't know what the landscape was like in 1995, but the way that my research shows is that his agent had to put it up on some like bidding board, and then he went on vacation or whatever for a weekend.
What a dream.
Put it up on,
What a dream.
he put it up on Friday, went to sleep, woke up on Monday, and there was a massive bidding war over this. And it was eventually purchased by Miramax. But one of the biggest... I didn't write this down, but it was really interesting. Script was purchased by Miramax after producer Kathy Conrad read the script and felt that it was exactly what Bob and Harvey Weinstein of the fledgling
Started.
Dimension Studios, then a part of Miramax, were looking for. So yes, Dimension Films, which made a lot of my favorite horror films, was unfortunately pioneered by the late Harvey Weinstein. Not the late...
Well,
We can hope.
we
the
can
late,
make
not,
that
the
happen.
not so great Harvey Weinstein, yes. But Wes Craven was eventually secured as a director after Drew Barrymore signed on at her own request. I'd never heard of this, but
I
she
didn't
heard
know
that the
that.
script was circulating around, so she, just like you, reached out and said, I want to be in this movie. I want to play the lead. And so they gave it to her. So before Neve Campbell was cast, Drew Barrymore was going to play Sydney.
Wow.
What a dynamic.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And so in April 1996 through June 96, filming took place over about 2 months, and eventually the title was changed from Scary Movie to Scream by Bob Weinstein. Craven spent about 2 months editing the final product, and here we are with Scream in 2016. In 1996. Got a lot of dates bouncing around here. But as I mentioned, Drew Barrymore was supposed to be the lead. She had, it didn't say specifically what, but she had scheduling conflicts. So they quickly made her, thankfully they hadn't shot very much. So they reorganized it so that she would be Casey in the beginning, which it seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
because it's so like Psycho.
Yes, exactly.
To have a way more prominent lead person in the beginning get killed right away.
Exactly.
And have the audience go, what am I doing? What is this movie going to be?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
delicious.
It's like, it's frankly, spoiler alert, Endgame. Have you seen Avengers Endgame? When they cut Thanos' head off, and it's just like, what is this movie
I was
now?
like, wait, what? Yeah, I didn't think that had actually happened, and that they're like gonna go back in time, and yeah.
I remember having a bunch of thoughts about that.
Yeah.
But the movie was originally going to be released as NC-17, which is famously a no-no for films. In America here, at least, NC-17 is a death sentence for horror films. There's G, PG, PG-13, R, and then this mystical realm of NC-17.
Oh, we don't even have that.
So our movies are anyone can come in under the age of 18 if they have a parent. NC-17 is no one under the age of 17 with or without a parent can come in. A few movies that have been released with that are Mad Max, the original Mad Max. Back then it was an X rating, which was like a publicity stunt. It was like, ooh, this one's super like gory or super sexy.
Like porn.
Like Grindhouse or something like that.
Yeah.
So eventually they had to whittle down a lot of scenes because of their intensity, but one that I thought was most interesting is the opening with opening in
Steve.
Drew Barrymore's slave body. The MPAA was like, no, you can't show all of that. You're gonna have to edit it. And Wes Craven lied to them and said, we only have that shot. We only did one take.
Wow.
We only did one take throughout the thing, so we can't edit it down. And they were like, okay. So
I love that.
What a genius.
I love that.
So we lied to them, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Take risks.
So Scream was released on December 18th, 1996 at the AMC Obco Theater here in Westwood, LA, opening in second against Beavis and Butthead Do America. Can you believe it?
That is so funny.
That the world,
They
the
were
way
like,
it was.
nah.
Wow.
MTV was
Yeah.
on top of the world.
Killing it. Yeah.
Which is so ironic because Scream, the TV series, ended up being on MTV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some of the other competing films at the time were Mars Attacks and Jerry Maguire.
Oh, more you know.
Directed by Wes Craven. Gory Days listeners, if you don't know who Wes Craven is, shame on you. He is a seminal director pioneering so many awesome horror films, just to name a few. A Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the biggest, Freddy Krueger. The Last House on the Left, the original The Hills Have Eyes. The People Under the Stairs, and Red Eye with Rachel McAdams and Cillian Murphy, to name a few.
Oh my god.
That was a great movie.
Yes.
Just
Really
iconic.
underrated. Yeah, really underrated. So, as I mentioned, it was written by Kevin Williamson. The effects team includes Howard Berger, Robert Kurtzman, who we've mentioned on the show before, and Gregory Nicotero, who we have not mentioned, music by Marco Beltrami. The movie stars Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, David Arquette as the hilarious lieutenant or sergeant or
Deputy Dewey.
Dewey, that's a deputy. Deputy Dewey Riley, who I thought, in my research, David Arquette thought he was going, it was like beefy role, like he was going to be like macho man's man, and when they cast him, they rewrote it to make it more comedic for him.
I love that.
It's great.
It's the best.
Yeah.
He's like, this movie is touted as like a comedy horror, but most of the comedy comes from Dewey.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got David Arquette, Courtney Cox as Gail
Queen.
Weathers, the she's. It's
Gail
weird. She's supposed
Weathers.
to be. I know.
That's
yeah.
her name.
She makes that comment later that
she
like
does.
I should be a
shouldn't
meteorologist.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me think like the way this was written, it feels so tongue in cheek at times.
Yes. Totally.
Like I said at the beginning, it is kind of a simultaneous love letter and condemnation letter to horror films because explaining all of the tropes and especially the one character's rules of how to survive horror films,
Exactly.
but then falling right into them and still being a great horror film.
Yeah.
Literally,
Exactly.
there's even that scene where like she's on the phone and she's like, "Yeah, those girls with the big tits, they always run up the stairs instead of out the front window." And then out the front window.
That might work.
Sad, I wish.
Look, you know,
No,
at
but
this
yeah,
point.
and then she does it. Like it's, I
Yeah,
love it.
or like when Jamie is, or when Jamie Kennedy's character is watching Halloween and he's going like, "Turn around, behind you."
behind you.
And the guy is the ghost face is standing right behind him. It's
Exactly.
beautiful. It's
Yeah, and
beautiful.
as well having that camera in the
there's several
in the van.
layers.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
my
Yes, so
God.
it's like delayed as well.
So then, if you're yelling at your TV at Kenny, telling them he can't hear you,
Yeah.
to him
Yes.
yelling
Yeah.
at Jimmy Kenny's
So good.
character.
Oh, it's
Genius.
just delicious.
Yeah.
So good.
So, quick synopsis. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. Major spoilers ahead. But Casey and Steve are killed at the very beginning. It's Drew Barrymore and this other guy. They die. And that kicks off the events of us meeting Sydney and Billy, her boyfriend, and friends. We've got Stu, Tatum, Randy, Sydney, Billy, and Billy. Yeah, so that's the 5 of them that all hang out. We meet them. Long story short, Sydney gets harassed by Ghostface over the phone, the same person who killed Casey and Steve at the beginning, but fingers Billy as the killer. So they take him into custody. They apparently don't do much because he gets out like the next day.
away,
Literally.
yeah.
He's at school, and after Sid punches Gail in an amazing departure from the police station, she gets a call at Tatum's house. Obviously, it wasn't Billy because the real killer's out there.
Yeah.
Little do we know. So Billy's back at school, but school's closed because of the deaths of Casey and Steve. So after the principal gets killed, it's party time. And for the last 40 minutes of the movie, it is one long party. So it makes this synopsis pretty easy.
Yeah.
Tatum dies, Billy dies, but then it turns out that the killers was 2 people. It wasn't just Billy like Sydney thought. It was Billy and Stu. And Billy's reasosoning for doing it is that I want to make sure I get my pronouns here right. I can't just jump around. Sydney's mom had an affair with Billy's dad, resulting in Billy's mom leaving Billy's dad, resulting in Billy developing resentment for Sydney.
Yes.
And took his revenge by, this is the worst part, by raping and killing Sydney's mom. Waiting a year, he's a monster. Like just like the
Absolutely.
background, like fridge horror of his
His mind.
of his psychosis. He waits a full year to kill her daughter again and tie this knot. And the worst part is that he would have gotten away with it if he had killed her, because they were stabbing themselves and they said like, oh yeah, he didn't kill us because they left us for dead. But the plan doesn't work. Sydney is able to get away. Stu is killed. Billy's killed. And Gail is the hero.
Of course she
great.
is.
It's kind of ironic because they set up Sydney to be like the heroine at the end, but really she's pretty ineffectual on her own.
so
It's
true.
Gail the one that takes
Yeah.
all of the agency at the end.
Damn right.
And that's Scream.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, So right off the bat, the rules for surviving a horror movie that I want to make sure I get his name right? Randy.
Yeah.
Randy Meeks, played by
Yes.
Jamie Kennedy.
Yes.
Is you may not survive a horror movie if you have sex, say, I'll be right back, ask who's there, or go out to investigate a strange noise. Does everybody in your film do this? Without spoiling anything?
Some of them do, some of them don't.
It seems like to write a movie in the style or in the homage of 80s movies, you can't ignore these.
You can't miss
Exactly.
these tropes, these iconic moments of like, oh, I'm going to do what you absolutely should not do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
no,
like what
absolutely.
Scary Movie kind of takes to the nth degree
Yes.
when one character is running. I believe there's that scene where she has an option to pick a gun, a grenade,
banana.
or a banana.
Yeah.
She grabs the banana.
Oh my God, yes.
And yeah, it's just taking that, because this movie really, it does do that kind of humor,
Yeah.
just
Yes.
a lot more grounded.
Yeah, totally.
Like when Tatum, like the funniest death is when Tatum thinks that it's Stu,
Yes.
her boyfriend.
Boyfriend,
Yeah, I guess
yeah.
they're boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah.
They're really only touching in the fountain
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
and then,
yeah.
He carries her off.
But that scene where Tatum is in the garage and Ghostface comes out and she's like, what is this? Am I supposed to be like the damsel in distress?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, because the horror of it is that she has no idea, but the humor of it is that she's making light of it. So it's like, on first watching, you don't know how to feel. Am I supposed to be
Totally.
laughing? Am I supposed to be
Yeah.
scared?
Yeah.
And it seems like the answer is both. I don't know. What do you think?
Totally. Well, it's just like, obviously we're pretty certain that it's not Stu,
Yeah.
but she in her reality, like she's like, oh, it's just my idiot boyfriend who always does jokes and bits.
Yeah,
So, like,
exactly.
In her reality, it's just like, of course she'd be bidding around with him, but then
Yes.
cut to when she gets the cut on her wrist, she's like, what the hell?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
like, oh, what?
And then she starts throwing the bottles at him, and then
Yeah.
that's when her her fear kicks in. So
Yes.
I like, as much as the audience the whole time, even when
Knows
she's like,
what's happening,
what, am I
yeah.
meant to do this? And he's like shaking his head. She's like, oh, you want me to run away? Like,
Yeah.
like we've known that she should be feeling fear, but then
Yeah.
obviously it took her a minute. But it's like, I think it is both funny and like, oh my God, get your ass out of there.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like,
And I feel like that's a really hard tightrope to walk, both
Yeah.
like screenwriting wise and directing, to instill like it's lit in a really scary
Yeah.
way, but once again her performance is really like light.
Light.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. Even like things
Absolutely.
like when she goes into the basement and the door closes and she's like bending over to get the beers.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like, okay, what are they
Yeah.
setting up kind of thing. But it
Cheeky.
was that comedy, like
Yeah.
that cheeky element to it. And I must say for me, like, I remember watching it and for a split second I thought, oh, maybe it is someone in costume like those two kids,
Yeah.
you know, that had dressed up at
That
school.
I hate those
Oh,
kids.
Yeah, it
Like
was
they're not
so
even doing
mean.
anything, they're just screaming and running around, just being a
Literally.
nuisance.
Also, just to interrupt, like the scene where those kids get taken into the principal's office, and the
It's so
principal,
weird.
when he has the scissors, the sound it makes, it's like
Yes.
shing, shing, shing.
It's always the same sound effect.
It kills me.
really
oh
funny.
my God.
And that's
every
Henry
time.
Winkler.
Yes! Oh, what
I
a legend.
love him.
Yeah.
Oh
Who
my
went
God.
uncredited in the movie because they didn't
Really?
want to show too much on him. They
yes.
wanted to make sure that the
Wow.
younger, less
their-
popular cast is
Really
prominent.
I
dope.
love that.
I love
Thank
that.
So even in the credits, he's uncredited. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really
But
cool.
yeah, that's really funny because first he's like, "You kids are expelled. Get out of here."
Yeah.
And it's like,
And
"What? They're
next minute-
expelled? That's not fair." And he's
Yeah.
like, "You're right. You're absolutely right. What would be fair is if shing you cut up shing and had your gut shing 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 shing." It's so funny.
Who made that choice?
Yes. I want to know if it was him.
Yeah.
I wonder, because like you think of Wes Craven directing this film,
Yeah.
like he is the one that created these tropes. So
Literally.
he's the one that's also helming the deconstruction of them. It
Yeah.
feels appropriate and also like weird in that same
Yeah.
development. So did you know who the killers were? Did you have a good idea when you were watching it the first time?
God,
I had no idea.
No, I had no
was
idea.
pretty certain Billy, just because of his eyes. I think he has shark eyes.
He does.
And like
Oh,
that
yeah.
was my analysis. Like no, if you have
Skeet
shark
Ulrich
eyes,
definitely has that
Yeah.
face.
literally. So I don't know. I definitely
That
thought
greasy
him.
hair.
Yeah.
But then I couldn't understand like how he was getting away with it. Which then obviously, if you have a second person,
Yes, it
that's
makes
how
it
you can.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did not see Stu coming, but then as soon as
Yeah,
there's
I
that
didn't see
moment where
Stu.
he holds the thing and he's like surprised, and
Yeah.
he like then it's
It
like
makes
of
sense.
course,
Yeah.
Well,
like
because they set it up early when the cell phone falls out of his
Yes.
pants, that
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
Yeah.
oh my.
But
God.
I remember watching it and thinking, oh no, that it can't be him because that's too obvious. Like, right. And then Officer Dewey kept popping up every time. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's like this.
There's a couple of important things where they set up one of the police officers. I believe it's do I have his name here? Yeah, Sheriff Burke, played by
Yeah.
Joseph Whipp. He has the same boots as the bathroom.
Wow.
In the
Yes.
bathroom,
Yeah.
when the Ghostface
Goes
comes down
down.
and drops his like cloak or whatever,
Yeah.
those exact same boots are what the police officer, the sheriff's
exactly.
wearing,
Yeah.
but it's a red herring. But
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are a couple moments
They
like that
do
when
that.
he's like
Totally.
eyeing
Yeah.
the evidence a little suspiciously.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I
Yeah.
remember it being Stu, but I did not remember who the other one was. So
Yeah.
the whole time I thought it was Jamie Kennedy's character. I kept expecting, and like it's this roller coaster ride with Billy,
It
where it's
is.
like it's definitely him. Oh no,
No,
it's
it's
not.
not.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
And then, yes, it definitely is.
definitely is,
And in the worst, horrific way.
Yeah.
And that was something that the producers wrestled with for a while, that like there were two warring factions of the production. Half of them thought it was scarier if there was no motive for the killers. Half of them thought it was really scary if there was a deep motive. And so they really couldn't decide, so they did both. They gave,
So smart.
they gave Billy
Yes.
a really deep motive, and they give Stu peer pressure
Yeah.
when he's
Yeah.
out.
Peer pressure.
Which is
Yes.
terrifying.
That phone call. Yeah,
I know, with the phone call. I'm
It's
sitting here, it's like,
everything.
how, you know.
I never appreciated it so much compared to like now having written a horror and having to go through that moment. Like we wrote that horror in 2 weeks because we were given like a deadline. Yeah. And the idea, we had to have one full day where we just sat down and just recorded voice memos of us trying to put these puzzle pieces together.
Oh.
So everything would be knitted and like tie up these loose ends. And now it gives me like a new appreciation for watching those things. I'm like, all those little things you had to reach to be like, oh, where were they? Like, who were they with? What were they doing? Like, oh my God.
And that's just a feature. Imagine writing an 8-season show like Game of Thrones and trying to tie all those up. What a nightmare.
Oh my God. Exactly.
Game of Thrones fans?
Yeah,
Maybe not
huge.
anymore.
Yeah, huge Game of Thrones.
Talk about horror.
Call it out.
But yeah, having the no motive, like in I think it's The Strangers. Is that the one where like, why are you doing this? And they say because you were home.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like the big wham line.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. But then the other motive is also just as sickening. Is like the calculated 1 year, and it makes his little speeches so much grosser.
Yeah.
At one point when he comes back from being in police custody, he's like mad at her for still lamenting the death of his mom.
Yeah. That's
Or
right.
of her mom.
Yeah.
And he's like, you should get over it.
Yeah.
When my mom left my dad, I got over
Yes,
it.
and it's like that is
And
completely
you see her
different.
face. She's like,
Your mom walked out.
Yeah.
She's not in the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so offensive, like, before you know he's the one who killed her.
Yes, let alone at the end.
Yeah, like,
Yes.
what does she see in him?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he seems so horny the whole time, too.
I
He has no
know.
interest.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't seem, like, connected to her at all. Yeah, it was very stilted, that relationship.
Yeah.
And, like, especially, like, the way, I don't know, it seems so 90s when they're all on the fountain. Like,
Absolutely.
it looks like
Yes.
Friends.
Exactly.
Yes, or like Clueless.
Yeah.
Oh
Clarissa
God,
explains
yes.
it all. So Billy Loomis's motive is the maternal abandonment, which is again a trope in horror movies. Is the idea that like, oh, I lost my mom, that made me psychotic.
Yeah.
But once again, it ties back to Psycho. The idea of this maternal relationship being intrinsic to a person's like mentality, and once it's severed, they go crazy. Especially when it's a mother to son element.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was a connection to Psycho that I didn't realize until this moment. That's two so far.
So cool.
Or we can dig up some others.
Yeah.
So much like Psycho, this movie casted. Like horror movies typically do, they will cast no names. Pretty much up until this, the 80s genre, a lot of people got their start in horror movies. Johnny Depp's first feature film was A Nightmare on Elm Street. Kevin Bacon's first feature film was Friday the 13th. A lot of these movies have catapulted these people. So, since horror is considered unsuitable for bigger names, since the films had lower budgets and typically got negative critical response, this movie was a shift from the teen slasher genre of the 80s when they cast Drew Barrymore and the principal...
Henry Winkler.
Thank you, Henry Winkler and Courtney Cox
Yeah.
into these roles that it elevated the movie to this much higher element, which is what was so interesting is that they released it in December, which is not a time that you would release horror movies typically.
not Halloween.
It's when you release like family movies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe like Aladdin, like those big
totally.
tentpole pictures.
Yeah.
But this was released kind of like as a gamble in December by Bob Weinstein, and it at first seemed like a really bad idea. In the first weekend, it did not perform well, but that's kind of like the bread and butter for a cult following. It's not supposed to do well when it comes out.
Yeah.
It picks up an audience
Over
as it
time,
goes.
yeah.
So like Liev Schreiber, this is like one of his first feature films. He doesn't have a speaking role. He plays Kate. Who does he play? He plays the Cotton Weary in that one video that we see of the guy who was accused of killing and raping
that's
Sydney's
right.
mom. That's Liev Schreiber.
Yeah.
Who I love. He was in Spotlight. Did you guys see Spotlight?
Yes, so good.
That was the one about the Boston Spotlight and shedding light on the priest child pedophile
Yeah.
ring.
Oh, I've got to see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I've got
It's
to.
amazing.
Really
Mark Ruffalo does a great job in it.
I love him.
But we're not talking about that. Much like killing off Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh in Psycho, they kill off Drew Barrymore in this, and I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a shame that you can't do it anymore without people going, "Oh, Psycho!"
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think like there's got to be a way. Have you seen Hereditary? We covered Hereditary on this most recently.
Yes.
I
And
haven't seen that.
well then, I won't spoil it for you because
you should.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Oh
the
my
one
God,
event
Toni
that I'm
Collette?
Yeah,
Oh my
she's
God.
incredible.
because the one event that I'm thinking of is
brutal.
is like that. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Without spoiling anything.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was interesting is that the director of photography was fired a week before the film was finished filming.
What?
Director of photography Mark Irwin, who's still credited as the DOP for this film, was fired during the filming of the finale at night, the night party thing. A week before principal photography was supposed to be completed. Upon review of the dailies, for listeners who don't know, daily is when you're creating a product every day. When they're done, they'll give you like this rough cut of what you created that day. Those are called the dailies. And when he watched those, Craven found that the footage was out of focus and completely unusable. Wasted hours of crew time. And so Irwin was told, you need to fire your film crew. And Mark Irwin said, you can't fire them, you'll have to fire me too. So they did.
Oh,
and they replaced him with Peter Durning, who finished the film.
Wow.
But yeah, I thought, like, could you imagine? Do you imagine being this deep into a production?
1 week away.
1 week away. Everyone is like probably on wit's end.
Yes,
They're all
exactly.
ragged. They're all looking forward to ending this. And this dude has wasted probably like a day or two of people's time.
Oh my god.
And this was the night shots too, where they had to end at dawn. They couldn't do anything.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So good for you, Mark Irwin. I wonder if he's still working out here.
Whether he burned his bridges.
Wow.
One other thing I thought was strange is that they never give Dewey a moment to mourn his sister's death.
Yeah,
I thought so
that
too, actually. Yeah,
I know.
They're shown really close several times,
and
it's
then
like
it's never brought up even in like the sequel, like never in the whole series. Like
because
really.
Dewey comes back.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that was the thing too, is that in the scenes where Dewey, there was a shot where Gale Weathers collapses onto Dewey. He's not breathing there because in the script and in fact during filming he was supposed to be dead. The decision to keep him alive was really late as a way of like, and it's still kind of left up in the air in the film because they didn't know whether they wanted to bring him back or not for the sequels. But of course Scream 2 was greenlit before this movie was out of theaters, so they brought him back.
Hell yeah, they did.
And that brings me to the legacy of this film. It sounds like you've seen them, Scream 2 and 3. And 4?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they all tied, like, unlike like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, they're all one cohesive story, and they all feature Nev Campbell, Sydney, right?
Yeah.
What happens generally?
Oh my god, okay, so let me get this right.
Yeah,
the second
I'm trying
one,
to think.
she's in college, and so like it's her doing her theater degree and everything
right.
like that. The third one, they're making the movie about it, or they're making the Stab series. So then they have like body doubles, like each of them has their character and then who's playing them.
Okay.
And there's like a lot of going on to like Hollywood backlots and stuff. Like it's a lot of that, and then their characters start getting killed off. And then the fourth one, it's Sydney's niece, played by Emma Roberts.
Oh.
And like her group of friends.
That was the 2011 one, right?
Yeah, because it was meant to be just a trilogy, right? And then they brought it back like in 2011.
I remember the ads for it,
Yeah. Oh my god, such a fun one. Because that one's got like a stellar cast of people as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's her group of friends, and then her being her auntie coming in and being like, oh my god, I've been through this. I've been through the Woodsboro murders.
Yes.
Like, even the beginning of the fourth one, they show like different clips of the Stab movies, which is their
the
film.
Scream.
It's Scream.
Exactly.
But there's so many like false endings. So you're like, okay, it's starting, and then it's like, nope, cut to like Stab 1. Like, it's just the trailer.
That's so meta.
It's so fun. Oh my god. Like,
that's so funny because it sounds a lot like Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yeah,
where they pull the camera back and it's like, okay, we're making the movie.
Literally. So it's like throughout consistently, they play into the same tropes but different tropes in like such fun different ways for each individual film, which I loved about it. Like, I just loved it.
I think it's interesting too that Wes Craven directed every movie in the franchise, which is unheard of for a horror movie franchise. So it really is a seamless tight
cycle,
story.
yeah.
But some of the pre-Scream horror films, post-Scream horror films, this movie inspired a brand new subgenre of horror where horror comedy was part and parcel. Movies like Bride of Chucky came out in 1998, introduced this level of comedy to the series.
Yes.
Yeah, that wasn't there before. I Know What You Did Last Summer is basically this movie.
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Hi.
Yeah.
So good.
That would have been another good movie to talk about.
Yes,
Look, if it
next
wasn't
time.
my second adoption, like, I swear, I was so close.
Okay, so we got Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer. What's
Yeah.
third?
Oh god, I love Cabin in the Woods. I know you briefly
I do
mentioned it
too.
before,
Yes.
because like, whoa, what a twist that I did
I
not
do
see
too.
coming. Like, wow.
And then finally, the TV show in 2015 on MTV. You can now find on Netflix. Ran
Yes.
for 2 seasons.
Hell yeah.
And then there was a post-show discussion called Scream After Dark. Did you ingest any of those?
I saw
didn't.
Scream the TV series, a Bellathorn basically playing like the Drew Barrymore of the
Character,
first
yeah.
scene, like she's out, but
Bella from Twilight?
no, Bellathorn.
Oh, Bellathorn.
Yeah, yeah. No, a role I did not see for her, but when she did it, I was like, oh my god, yes, queen, get it. Like, be
Yes,
the first
queen.
death. I love that. But yeah, no, I thought it was a really interesting take on like such an iconic series to bring it into like a more modern, like specifically teen audience. I thought they really handled it well, but like obviously it wasn't the same because it's a TV series, but I did enjoy it. And like the gore that they brought, I really liked.
Well, it's
So.
interesting as a series because it seems like with each one, there's an opportunity to elevate the humor, the meta, and
Yeah.
the rules, and to
Yes.
like update them for like, well, now we've all seen Scream, so how have movies adapted to that?
Exactly.
And-
Even like the technology stuff, like
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
cell phones are used as opposed to like their like home phone. Like
Yeah.
it's it was very, very interesting.
in fact, that's like when his cell phone pops out. That's
Yeah.
why it's such a oh my gosh moment because at the time, not
Not a big
everyone.
one
thing.
had one.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah,
be rich
exactly.
to like
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
a cell phone. Oh my god.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And most interesting, that series on MTV is coming back. A 6-episode third and final season scheduled to premiere in 2020.
Wow,
my
I just
God.
love that it's still going on.
Me
Like,
too. Like even like
know?
it's so funny. I remember when this series, we were waiting for this series to come out, and me and my best friend Jay from back home, who like he's the one who got me into horror everything. Like he was messaging me about it, and we were just messaging, and we like would watch an episode as it was coming out, and like then send voice memos
and
to each other like
rehash about it.
opinions.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Who do we think's the killer? Like because it wasn't just like a one and done film. Like we had that like time in between to be like, here's our
Digest
predictions,
it,
which was
yeah.
interesting because you don't really get that in a film unless you're watching it together through
Yeah.
this like
Discussing
one
it.
and
Yeah,
a
as you
half
go,
hour, like
yeah.
you know. So that was a really fun experience.
It is fun because it is a mystery.
Yeah,
It's,
totally.
And like a mystery, like Murder on the Orient Express, there's multiple killers.
Yes.
And I love that.
Yes.
Of course, you're not going to assume that it's multiple people.
No,
that it's the one voice.
exactly.
It's
Yep.
obviously a person we don't know because of that
Yeah.
voice. Yeah. And even though when they start accusing each other, I don't know. What did you think? Because the voice obviously didn't match any of them. Did you think it was a voice recorder at the time? I didn't think that technology
No, I
existed.
don't think
neither.
that
Yeah.
either. No.
I don't know if it did,
Yeah.
but it's a movie.
We made it work.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I
No, because I remember watching it and thinking it had to be an older person. 'Cause
Yeah.
it, like
The
with the
voice,
deep voice.
yeah.
Like the police chief.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So I was
exactly.
like, this all makes sense. He keeps rocking up at the same time, you know, when shit's going down.
Uh-huh.
But then once they whipped out the little
Oh,
voice changer,
sneaky,
game changer.
sneaky,
I remember
yeah.
like I was so excited because me and my friend Jay got like the apps that you can do, and it's like
Oh, the voice changer
yeah, we would all the time in high school like call each other and be like, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And then it's just be like, "We're the lamest people in the world." But no, yeah, it's iconic. So
Yes.
yeah.
I remember watching the opening scene and like the trivia questions that he gives and being so
Yes.
proud of myself for
Yes.
knowing that it was Pamela Voorhees in the first Friday the 13th and not Jason.
yeah.
And I remember watching it now and going like, oh, was there more trivia? What's the next question? That's it. It's just
That's yes.
And I would have loved to have seen like some more of, oh, if she gets it wrong, maybe he breaks the breaker, turns out the lights.
Yeah.
If he gets
Well,
it right.
Yeah, in the fourth one they do it with what's her name, Hayden.
Ooh, Hayden Panettiere from
Yeah,
Heroes?
she gets like a scene like that where she's having to defend someone and she gets a bunch of different
Multiple,
questions.
yeah.
And she's like a horror fanatic, like
Oh, that's fun. It
Yeah.
feels very Saw in the do we want to play a game?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
And I have to imagine
Exactly.
that this inspired James Wan, Lee Whannell's
for
thing in
sure.
some way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course, now he's doing Aquaman in the trench.
Oh, yes.
So the deaths themselves in this movie are not that gory. They're not that bloody, and it's what makes it like. It's what makes this movie feel not like a slasher at some times, where the blood and stuff is just like when you said. Tegan.
Tatum.
Man, I've got a lot of characters here.
that's
I've got
a lot,
notes
that's a
and I'm
lot.
s- Okay, yeah. Tatum gets her arm cut, and it's just like, that one
Just
little
like
line.
little line, yeah, exactly.
And even when they find her body mangled and stuff,
Yeah.
it's not
It's
that.
just,
It's not blood, it's just like her head's kind of
Yeah, which is ironic for Wes Craven, who famously killed Johnny Depp with an ocean of
Yes.
blood
Blood,
up on the
yes.
roof.
exactly.
Yeah, so I couldn't decide because obviously this wasn't written by him in the same way that Nightmare on Elm Street was. This was written by Kevin Williamson, but he had this attachment to it because of the tropes. I don't know. It's just like as a director, I'm not a director, but I wonder as a director, like it sounds like he was having a lot of fun poking fun at himself.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so that comes through. I guess is what I'm just trying to say.
Yeah.
Some of the themes of this movie, specifically being young, dumb, and full of it, are prevalent. Like when they go to the video store and Randy Meeks is being just an asshole to his customers and to Billy, or is it Stu at the time?
He's doing it to Stu.
He's talking it to Stu.
Pops up.
That's right. Yeah. That they're just a bunch of dumb kids in the same way that like Cabin in the Woods is. That they're just setting them up. Basically, the whole movie is just to get them to the party at the end.
Exactly.
And kill them all one by one, and to introduce Gail. Who feels. She's like inserted in this movie, and she feels like the characters even respond to her in a way that it's like, you don't belong in this movie.
Why are you here?
What are you doing here?
But that's what's so great about it.
Oh, the vendetta between her and Sydney. Like
it's so good. Yeah,
absolutely divine.
And as well, like you want to hate Gail at the start because she's just so annoying, and these kids are going through so much. Yeah, and then in the end, when she's she's
the queen.
She's the hero.
Yeah, you're like yes.
And it comes out of nowhere because you thought she died.
Yes.
It's great.
And the balls that she has when she's just gone through all this and she's just like, all right, let's get the cameras ready. Yeah.
She's a professional
She
and
really
an author.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a businesswoman.
That's right.
Yeah.
She really is. Yeah. Why? And it's a shame that she's mocked so heavily by everyone because she is the woman with the most agency in this movie.
Yeah.
When she wants something, she gets it done.
Exactly.
When someone stands in her way, she shoots them.
Exactly.
And she can even take a punch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what Nev's right hook is, but it must be strong. But no, she's the most impressive woman in this movie, which is a shame because she's a bit part. She's a supporting character. Nev's character, Sydney, is the main character, and like I said earlier, she really just has things happen to her.
Exactly.
She really doesn't do that much. And so that's something that I wanted to bring up is from a writing perspective, like the responsibility one feels. It came up last time. My last episode, I talked about Heathers, and that was written by a man and directed by a man, and it was something that like I thought about. That now we have in 2019 and hopefully forever in the future, we have this requirement, a compulsion to have our stories portrayed by the people who have lived them. If you're going to have a disabled person on screen, they should be portrayed by a disabled person. If you're going to have a woman on screen, ideally they should have been written by a woman. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
No, absolutely. Once I started writing, because these are all things we know. Like, it should be a woman writing a woman's story. It should be someone talking from their truth. But it wasn't until I started that it's like you start to realize how important it is. Because, this whole project started from me meeting with my friend Alex Brown, who's the guy who's kind of gotten us into all these projects. And I just wanted to film a short where it was a bigger woman. I'm a bigger woman. You don't see me, but I am. I'm just killing it. But
yes, you are.
Yeah.
Like, I just wanted a role for a bigger woman in a comedy where she could be like funny and lovable, but also kind of like a final girl, like, to be quite honest. And we were just going to do a short. And then because we happen to have so many international friends who are trying to stay in the US, get their visas, and we need work to stay in the country, we just decided to make a feature and bring in all of our international friends and give them roles so that it could help them. And once again, we could try and break certain types while also keeping certain like horror tropes.
Exactly.
For instance, I'm terrified of writing a woman. Like if I were to sit down and write, I've started to adopt this style of writing my characters as just character one, character two, and then the relationships can come like incidentally, but that doesn't affect their gender.
Yeah.
Like a daughter can be anything.
Totally.
A son, like all of that. And so. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like that's the right thing to do, but I run into problems with it too. And it feels like no matter how much research you do with someone who's experiencing that, it still feels like you're telling their story.
Totally.
And I don't know, how do you feel like when you're portraying a woman? Like, do you feel a responsibility to make sure that she's not like hysterical or whatever? Of course, the writing is going to decide that, but your performance is informed by it.
Yeah, and I think it's what's been really interesting about working in the industry is that for me personally, I've been getting quite a few different cast types. So sometimes I play the more tomboy kind of role, and then other times I play the kind of more like a dumb kind of blonde type. But you're right, you have to kind of remain truthful to the character and not play like stereotypes just because I'm a female and the writer might have said, oh look, personality wise she's a dumb blonde. You still have to kind of find the female truth, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And that seems so
Absolutely.
challenging.
Yeah, it
Because it's
is.
so much
Absolutely.
easier to fall into stereotypes and just
Totally.
be what you've seen on like SNL or Mad TV
Yeah.
and other movies that have perpetuated this negative idea
Yes.
of what a dumb blonde is capable and not capable of.
Exactly. But sometimes when you do find all those layers within a character, that's what makes it amazing.
Yeah.
Is when someone look, they might be seen as the dumb blonde, but actually there's so much deeper that's happening, and there's a reason that they've become that way. Like even back to Scream with Billy, it's like, with his intention behind it, that's created his whole experience of becoming an adult and, going from his childhood to becoming this psychotic
Being.
And that's something I've always admired from the performance standpoint is like I don't think I could do that, like in my face and in my body and stuff, is put forward the things that aren't written on the page, is all of those in between things that it's your job and not necessarily the writer to invent for you. Like when you say the character is is Billy, 25, dumb blonde. That's all you're given.
Yeah.
And it's your job to kind of like inform that as she is a three-dimensional character, even if she's just going to, bump into something or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly.
Yeah.
But it's a shame you're getting typecast. But hey, you're getting cast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Where was I going to go with that? That was a really good discussion. I can edit this out so I don't sound stupid. So I had a fun segment that I wanted to play with you too. It's a little
alright.
segment that I like to call Who Killed Who, Billy or Stu?
Oh my god. Okay, timeline. Here we go.
Okay.
Holy Jesus.
On this
Okay.
segment of Who Killed Who, Billy or Stu, I am going to list murders, and my guests are going to decide who committed those murders, Billy
God, I
or
love
Stu.
this.
Yes.
Murder number 1, Casey and Steve.
I think it was coordinated.
I think so
because
too,
Billy
yeah.
arrived after that, after the killing.
Exactly. Someone had to be on the phone while...
Yeah, I think it was a dual job. I
Yeah.
think Stu was probably outside doing the killings, but I think Billy was inside.
I think so too. Yeah.
I think there's definitely, there's an answer here, but
Oh, oh my god.
but I definitely think, that
Violently
when Billy is like, one of them has to be throwing the chair through the window.
Yes.
One of them has to be tying up Steve back
Exactly.
there.
Yeah.
But the other one is in the house when he's
Absolutely.
chasing after her.
Yes.
And then it definitely takes two people to hoist Drew Barrymore
person
up
up.
into a
Exactly.
tree.
And that quickly as
that
well.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what it's heavily implied, is that
Yeah.
the ghost face that's seen running around the house after the chair is thrown was the one in the back that came from the back of the house. But after Casey's stabbed and choked,
Yeah.
when she removes his mask, she's like, she has this look on her
Yeah,
face. It's like, I
I
recognize
know
you.
you.
It's Stu, because they were dating.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a
We'll
throwaway
talk about
line.
later.
Yes.
Yeah, with Tatum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sydney's house attack.
Oh my
The
god.
first time that someone breaks into her
Yes.
house and then Billy pops up at the window and drops the cell phone. Who was chasing her?
God, I want
Did Billy quickly change that fast?
I
Within
want to
seconds?
say, Billy. I want to say he's got it in him. Oh, yeah, I think
Yeah,
I
I'm
want
going to say Billy.
I think so too. I think
Yeah.
it was Billy. No, I think it was Billy who called, but I
Yeah.
think Stu was the one in the house.
Do you
so
think it was coordinated
yeah,
all
I
the
think Stu
time?
was there running around. Not all the time, because
Here we go.
this one, Sydney's bathroom attack. Which one's that?
Yeah.
When she gets the
When she's in the school
yeah.
bathroom, where he never actually chases her.
No.
He just
Yeah.
kind of steps down from the stalls
That's right.
and then
Surely
runs
it's
out.
Stu because she runs into Billy.
Yes.
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 Nice.
Yes.
You guys are good at this. Principal Himbry's murder.
Oh.
Who killed Principal Himbry?
God. Okay, let me think where people were.
Yes.
I mean, they just talked. That happened straight after. Okay.
Yeah, so it's...
I mean, Billy was at the school. I don't know where Stu was.
But it's got to be Stu, right?
Maybe it was Billy because she ran off
Yeah,
from him.
that's
so he was
true.
in the school. So I think
Yeah,
it's Billy.
okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, because Stu walks out with Tatum and Sydney,
Oh,
and
just-
then he does this look like, I'm going to do something suspicious, but there was no time that he could
Oh,
have
could've
gotten
gone back
there.
in. Yeah,
So it's
okay.
Billy that kills him. And I thought it was interesting, that murder wasn't initially in the script. It was suggested because there was like 30 pages with no deaths.
Yeah.
And someone was like, there should be a
It
death
needs to
here.
be-
So they
yeah.
slipped it in. But it ended up solving a major plot issue,
Yes.
which is how do we get all the kids out of the party? How do we keep it to just the core? So it's, they hear about the murder. And it's so weird. They hear about the murder. They're all clearly too drunk to drive.
Yes. And then they all just get
just
in their
speed
cars.
off.
But where? They're like, oh, let's go see the body?
Yeah.
That's what they're like. Oh, before the
fucked
cop
up.
scene?
Yeah.
That is so messed up.
Exactly. Oh my god.
So Tatum's murder.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay, who's out? Stu? No, Stu's
So
like, I'm
Stu's
gonna go get a beer.
yeah.
Oh no, he's like, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
Oh my god, okay, because what happened?
Where's Billy at this point?
Billy?
He hasn't arrived.
Wait, okay, he arrives, goes upstairs, he's about to fuck Sydney.
Yeah.
And then, oh my god,
So it's gotta-
I want to say Stu. I
Yeah,
want to say
it's gotta be
Stu,
Stu.
because at that same time, Billy's upstairs with Sydney, right?
Well, according to IMDb, Billy later shows up and gives Stu a
Yeah.
face signal that he
Is
killed
that he
Tatum.
killed Tatum.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
That's what I wanted to say.
Oh my
Oh, and that's Toby.
Hi! A cat has just walked into the room, so I'm excited.
Our studio cat has come visit. And he's
Okay,
probably
bye. That was the most cat thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Like
the-
walking on, you guys are good. Okay, bye.
too much attention.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to bring up when we were talking about performance is Skeet Ulrich as Billy. After you've seen the film and
Yes.
know what you know, his performance is a completely different performance.
Totally.
Every little look
Subtlety.
he gives,
Genius.
Yeah.
so good.
Yes.
And that's the kind of stuff you're talking about is he
Totally.
had to know that obviously from point one, from action, and be able to
Yeah.
portray that kind of like subtlety that would make educated viewers go, something's not
Something's
right.
up here.
But the
Yeah.
layman just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the art. That's
Absolutely.
Totally.
yeah, that's the thing that I don't think I could do. I have a lot of reverence for good actors. Billy's fake murder
Oh my god.
after they have sex and
So,
Well, yeah, it's got to be
Stu.
Stu, right?
Yeah.
Duh.
Surely.
sorry, not to say
no,
duh.
no, yeah. Surely.
Kenny's murder.
Oh my god.
Not
Kenny.
Jesus, but
Yeah, yeah.
Kenny.
Kenny when he's in
Kenny.
the cameraman.
The cameraman.
Oh,
Cameraman
yes,
out of
yeah.
the thing. Okay, well, if we,
what's-
I think if Stu was back at the house, because Billy at that point Billy would have been upstairs
Yeah.
with Sydney. Stu had been in the house. I'll be right back. And then so surely it's got
he
to be
comes
Stu.
out. Yeah, it's got to be Stu.
because that lines up with the timeline of I'm thinking, right?
Yeah, since Stu claims that Gail died when she crashed into a tree with the news van after finding
yes.
Kenny's dead body, it's most likely that Stu stuck around the area in front of the house even after Sydney got away.
That's yeah.
So Dewey's attack.
Oh my god. Okay.
Deputy
because
Dewey.
he comes out with the knife in the back.
Yeah.
Oh god. Okay. Who was in the house? Billy.
Billy.
Surely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
He hears Dewey's yell, puts on the costume, goes downstairs,
Yes.
stabs him, chases Sydney, either goes through a window or the garage to pretend that nothing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then the last one on here is her dad's abduction, Neil Prescott. He never got to the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay.
So that was because when they find the car,
That
they're
was
like, "Oh,
very-
he hasn't left."
Yeah. So like he was abducted.
like a
early
few
Bill, I
days.
reckon
on.
probably Billy then, because Billy.
Well-
Remember, he snuck in the window when the dad was like,
Totally.
"I'm going off for this weekend trip or whatever." So it must have been Billy when he jumped back out the window.
Yeah. I want to say, but then wasn't he brought in like into jail?
No, not at that
Not-
point. No, that wasn't.
That was Billy's dad.
Bit, like,
Yeah.
later on. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. No, but like Billy would have been in jail. Was that around the time when he was being abducted?
No, I
it
think
doesn't line up.
I think the abduction happened earlier.
Like
right as
Right
they
at the
left the
beginning.
house, because
Yeah.
the car was like not far from their house.
So do you reckon both of them could have done it then? Because like even to take down
yeah.
like
You
one
would have
man,
to,
like
that's
surely
true.
like
Yeah.
it would
Yeah.
be too risky to just do
That's true,
man
yeah.
on man, you know, unless you were like unless you were prepared.
Unless you were
like,
the Hulk, yeah.
But what's interesting is that their plan was to frame him as the
Yeah.
killer.
Yes.
Was that, and it kind of, like I said, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
It would have
From-
worked out.
Yeah, from a police like, okay, yeah, done and done. Is
Yeah.
that the father or the husband was crazy and
Yeah.
he killed the daughter?
Yeah.
And, yeah, and all these other kids.
Yeah.
So it's something that I like to ask people. Oh, and that concludes our segment. Who killed who? Billy or Stu? So let's see. How many points did you get? 1
So
point.
close.
2.
Oh.
Oh, 900 points. Congratulations.
Yes, that works out.
Well, great. Now I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, I think that's everything that I had
Amazing.
here. Was there like things that you wanted to bring up, please?
Well, I just have this wild story that happened to me. So my older sister was having a sleepover watching Scream.
Okay.
And I think they were going to get through, I can't remember how many Screams were out at this point, but I can't remember how old I was, but I was like watching the film with the girls, and we had a Scream mask from the following Halloween. And my mum went outside the window
Oh my-
as we were
Iconic
watching
queen.
Scream with a knife and just like tapped at the window.
Your mum.
I know. Wild. And like I knew it was my mum, so I was just laughing. But the other girls at the sleepover, like a few of them were like in tears.
Yeah, I bet.
One of them was like, I've got to go home. Like,
Oh my god. Oh my god.
How old were you?
I
Were you like kids?
yeah, I mean,
Old enough for this movie?
old enough, like I would have been 8 when the film came
8?
out,
Oh.
but then they would have been, it was probably like, the girls were probably like 12 or 13.
Oh, yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Still
teens.
young teens.
Wow. Oh my god.
Your mom.
R.I.P.
Your mom has a sadistic sense of
I know,
humor.
but it
That's how I
was the
wanna
best
do my
thing
birthday.
ever.
Yeah.
It's because now all the girls, like, they keep talking about that night and they look back on it and laugh, you know.
It puts character on you, I'm
Yeah.
sure. That brings up an interesting point is the real world effect of Scream. Like the costume exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it exists in the movie. So
Exactly.
that there's this element of horror that comes with that because it's supposed to be a crappy costume. They
Yeah.
even show it in the movie that you can buy
Anyone
it.
Yeah.
can get it.
Yeah, and it looks like it's made of like that weird polyester or
Yeah,
whatever you
in
get
the
Halloween
second one,
costumes.
they're
Yeah.
literally like handing them out at the movie theater. Stab one, like everyone is getting handed these costumes. Everyone's wearing these
Yes.
costumes.
Ooh,
the
that's
first
genius.
death is like
Yeah,
Jada
isn't
Pinkett
it?
Smith, I think.
Because you'd have
Yes,
no idea.
literally,
It could be
it-
anyone.
yeah.
The first death in everything, like every single one is obviously iconic, but hers is like she's at the cinema in front of all these people, like she has to walk on stage as she's just been stabbed by her boyfriend
Yes.
next to her supposedly, but it was just
It's
the
someone-
killer
But
in
does
the
everyone
mask.
think it's part of the show?
They think like everyone's dressed in the same
That's
costume.
Yeah, everyone's like,
genius.
woo!
It's so good. And she's
That's
like
so
holding
good.
up blood, and everyone's like, yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
It's so delicious.
Oh, that gives me chills. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never had the costume, but I had a friend who had the version where like you pumped something and blood would come down the front of it. Yeah, I don't know if that ever made it in any of the films, but yeah. But unfortunately, it was a thing where a couple of real world murders happened, and the people cited this movie as inspiration.
Totally.
And so, like, again, from like a performance or writing standpoint, where is like the line for like what
Absolutely.
how did my creation
Inspire.
exactly
Yes.
inspire evil in the real world, like art affecting the real world in a negative way?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's very hard because like obviously you want to get into the, like even for us writing this and doing this was for the reasons in order to like help people and also put on something that we love, like a genre we love. But then if you're dealing with anything like this, like death, like psychotic people, you can't go into it not even not knowing, but like just hoping that no one's gonna it's very hard, I can't even
And you don't have control over that.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
Like I think as well, because I remember do you remember when all the clown
Stuff,
the clown
yeah.
stuff
That was
happening
here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it was around the time of It.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and so you have no idea how that's gonna translate into the real world and how it's gonna be received, whether it is good or bad. And unfortunately, with horror, it does have that element of people taking it too far.
And I guess my follow-up question is, should you? Like, how much of a responsibility is it of you as a creator to, I mean, it's not like everything you should create should be wholesome and happy and should be spreading positivity out in the world,
Totally.
because sometimes a deep horror thing can
things
still
happen. Yeah,
exactly,
every
and that
day.
still brings positivity to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, it can also, inspire the worst kind of people, like John
Absolutely.
Lennon or what was Jodie Foster's like shooter. These people, there are people out there who will take the best things that people have created and dismantle it, and in a way, that is art.
Yeah.
That when
Yeah.
you create art and send it off into the world, when you say you're done, it's not yours
it's not.
anymore.
No.
Yeah, it is for people to just run with. And it's like, God, you have so much responsibility, but then also once it's done, it's like, there it is.
Yeah.
It's a standalone thing,
Even as an actor, it's one of those things, I can't remember who it was, but an actor, he was talking about that back in the day, he used to be so upset when a film that he was in didn't make any money or it wasn't well received. And then I think it was Matthew McConaughey.
Oh.
Yeah, and he said that once I decided that the only thing I could control was my performance, that's when I really fell in love with acting. And actually, that's when other things started happening. But he kind of said that the only thing, you have control only over a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the same with a film. It's like you don't have any control about, the box office ratings
Or marketing.
Yeah,
marketing,
all the
anything like that. So all you
repercussions,
can do is like be in the moment.
I've always thought about that when you see posters for things, and
Yeah.
it's like maybe I can only think of animated examples right now, but maybe the poster will be just like a swath of the main characters and like some big red and blue explosion,
Yeah.
and in the corner will be like let's say Matthew McConaughey in the
Yeah.
corner, and he's like looking like this,
Yeah.
and there's some
Yes.
explosion behind him or something. It's like that was just a photo shoot. Like that was
Yeah.
just telling him like stand like this, maybe stand like this.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know
Yeah.
which one they're gonna pick, and he doesn't know how big he's gonna be on the poster and
Exactly.
stuff. But
Totally.
if he's racking his brain about that, he's suffering. He's driving himself
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah. And you're right, like even with takes of sometimes you'll do a take yourself and you'll be like, oh yeah, that was a great one. And then in the editing, they go with something that didn't resonate with you.
Or they
Yeah.
cut it before the great thing you
Yeah.
did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have no control over that.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
it is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So our last segment on the Gory Days is we like to rate our films on a scale of 1 to 5 thumbs, 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. I guess we'll do individually. Georgie, what did you think of Scream?
I would say 4.5.
Okay.
Yes,
And
yes.
typically we will award those thumbs to characters in the movie. So you can
Okay.
split them up or you can give them all to 1.
Oh, this is hard. I'd probably I've got to say Billy, like how we discussed. Like for me, I'm looking at like the acting side
Sure.
and as well. I got to give him probably 2, and then Gail.
About 1.5.
Gail, she gets 1, and then. Oh, who would you say? This is really hard.
I want to like go into like quarter thumbs.
Yeah,
Splitting it up.
yeah. I'd probably.
To everyone in the cast and crew.
yeah.
I'd probably give half to Dewey.
Nice.
Yeah,
Dewey.
he just added so much.
He carries
Yeah.
a lot of the comedy.
He
There's that
did,
one
yeah.
scene where he reaches for the phone to go like,
Hello.
hello.
It's one of my favorite
cute.
moments. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Look.
Yeah.
That's great. So 4.5 thumbs. Awesome.
Yeah.
Steph, what did you think of Scream?
I'm gonna go balls to the walls. 5 thumbs.
All right.
Absolutely. I just love it.
Now you got 5 thumbs.
Tell me
you
about it.
gotta get
I
it.
know it. Okay. So I'm definitely going to give 1 each to Gail and Dewey.
Nice.
Absolutely. They just carry the series so well.
And they had a
Yeah.
little romantic thing in
yeah,
the
they
middle.
do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Those two, I think Stu is phenomenal for the
Oh,
part that he
yeah.
plays. I think Matthew Lillard is just a genius.
He
Like
really is.
he honed that character that he had around that time and just like ran with it, and it was so great. Definitely 1 to Billy and 1 to Sydney as
All
well. I
right.
think that's my
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for bringing me Scream. I love this movie,
Yeah.
and I'm going to give it 3 thumbs.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you. 'Cause
Totally.
I could tell you liked it, and I like it
course.
too, and I just have too many like questions, and to tell you the
Totally.
truth, I fell asleep the first time I watched it. So I had to go back and watch it again. But I'm glad I did, because the
Yeah.
scenes I missed were all about the Cotton Weary and stuff. And
Yeah.
it filled in all
Made
that background.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm ashamed to admit that, but yeah. So
No,
I'm going to
I
give it
love
3
it.
thumbs,
Great.
and I'm going to give one of those thumbs to Sydney right out the
Yeah.
right out the gate, because she's great. She carries the whole movie,
Yeah.
even if she doesn't do anything. She's still
Yeah.
carrying the movie.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
true.
I'm going to give 2 thumbs to Gail Weathers, Courtney
Yes.
Cox, who is the real hero of this
Yes.
movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
and if this movie was remade, I feel like it without the Scream 2, 3, and 4, all of it just rebooted, I feel like Gail would need to be like elevated
Oh,
way more.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
to give her more to
Absolutely.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like, how'd she learn how to use a gun? Obviously she doesn't know the safety, but
Yeah.
she gets a headshot on the dude.
Damn right she does.
Legend.
And that's Scream. So, Steph, we'll start with you. Where can people find you online if they want to keep up with you or see more of what you're doing?
Well, I'm currently working on my website. It'll be up very shortly. It's just going to be www.stefbeaton.com. But if you want to follow me on socials, I'm at Stef Beaton on Instagram, or there's at Getaway Film. And I think that's about it for me. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll be sure to include those in the description.
Amazing. Love that.
How about you, Georgie?
So I have a website, and it's just GeorgieStormWaite.com. And same with Instagram and Facebook. It's just at Georgie Storm Waite. And Georgie, I know, is not a very popular American name, so it's Georgie.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say me, Stef. It's Stef. Crazy, I know.
No PH here.
No PH here. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming to the Gory Days. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah,
Maybe we
thanks,
can have you guys
Kyle.
back on when
I
that
would
movie
love
is coming
that.
out.
Yes,
We'll see.
Getaway.
Yeah.
Mr. Signal. Yeah, but until then, thank you so much for listening. Stay scary out there.
The Gory Days.